Time to give the people what they want. It's Jalen and Jacoby.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, Doe?
I'm David Dowling Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
Together, we are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do,
We
Mr.
get
Rose?
people what they want.
The Cleveland Cavaliers were about to earn their 9th straight win in a row when they were playing the Miami Heat. LeBron James went to the basket. Here he is to his left. Got a little bump, nothing crazy, and then he got mad. He goes over to the official. He's cursing. The official didn't want to hear it and threw LeBron James out of the game. Bit controversial. Some people think it was a bit quick that he was thrown out. Do you think LeBron James is treated fairly by the referees?
All superstar players are treated fairly by the officials because in basketball, especially the NBA, there are different phases of who gets the call when.
Okay.
There are rookie calls, there are veteran calls, there are calls in the beginning of the game, there are fourth quarter calls, there are reach-ins, there are over the back. There are so many judgment calls. Block charge comes to mind. So based on that, when you have won as many MVPs and championships as LeBron James and accomplished so much in the league and become an iconic figure, of course you get preferential treatment from the officials, and rightfully so.
So he is, as you can see on the screen, he's averaging a career low of 5.4 free throws a game, even though he is scoring around the bucket at his normal tick. And another thing is this, I think he's kind of getting Shaquille'd. Like, he's just so strong that the contact doesn't feel like contact, and he's so good at re-squaring his shoulders to the basket after taking the contact that the referee kind of feels like, oh, you should have made that shot anyway. Like, I actually feel like he should get more calls than he does, even though he's a superstar. Do you agree with that?
He doesn't do a lot of flopping. He doesn't do a lot of flailing.
Anymore. He used to flop. He used to flop.
Which is something that the officials sometimes fall for. But the reason why he doesn't get the calls based on you just giving his average free throw numbers being the lowest of his career, because he out there bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And when you going through players on the post and on drives, and then you still finish it or you dunk over the top, there's no need to call a foul.
That's kind of how I feel it's happening. Like, I think he gets fouled a lot and doesn't get called because he's just like, the contact doesn't really dissuade him from what he was trying to do in the first place. The ref just sees him doing whatever he wants. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to give him another point for this take because he just got a layup off of this and there's 2 players on the ground from the opposing team.
That's the game within the game. How many times where he's going to do a reach-in and the 9th man is going to do a reach-in simultaneously, the other guy's going to get the foul called on him. That's just how it works in the game.
You know,
and when you're a superstar like LeBron James, when it's time for him to get the calls, guess what's going to happen? He will be going to the line.
Well, he did get kicked out. And remember he said that Enes Kanter always has something to say? You wouldn't believe this, but he got kicked out, and Enes Kanter had something to say. He fired up his Twitter fingers, put this out into the world, where he called the referee, Kane Fitzgerald, the king of Cleveland, his favorite playground. I always say you can be mean if you're funny. Is this mean? Is this funny? I also always say this, you want to beef up. Do you support Enes Kanter beefing up at LeBron James?
I do, because here's what has happened. Enes Kanter understands that you don't have to throw a punch or take a punch to make fans feel like you're about that life. And playing in New York City is just like playing in Detroit and a lot of other towns. We want a physically tough team that just so happens to be really good.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And so for Kanter, if he becomes the face of a team that will not back down, that will be physical, that will talk trash, he doesn't have to put in the physical work of a Charles Oakley for people to retire him immortally as that guy that went at the opposing players consistently.
Especially when it's LeBron James. Well, he also said this about going at opposing players. Here's what he told ESPN's Ian Bagley, quote, I'm not going to tell who, but I told somebody, hey man, go out there and fight with somebody. It will get the energy up. No, I'm serious. If you go out there and you just hit somebody or fight with somebody, just get a technical foul, I will pay the fine. I don't care. Just go out there, do your thing, because we need that energy. We need that fight. It doesn't matter if we're down by 25. A fight, get a technical foul, the crowd is in it, and they're going to get nervous. Jalen, I have a lot of questions about this, but first of all, is this something that NBA players do? Premeditated, technicals or hold me back moments to sort of juice up the home crowd?
The answer to that question directly is yes. But I want to peel back the onion a little bit more and talk about leadership.
Okay.
Because you don't have to tell me to go out and fight.
Thank you.
And you'll pay my fine. You go right ahead.
That's what I was wondering the whole time. I was like, was he at the end of the bench? Was he hurt? Was he in a suit? Was he allowed to play? Because this reminds me of something that you do sometimes. You do this, and you're guilty of this sometimes too. You know what you should do, Jacoby? Do you know what email you should write, Jacoby? And that's what I feel like Ennis Cantor was doing. You know what I mean? He was just like, he's like, do you know what we need right now? We need you to go out there and start a fight with Willie Reed. It's like, I don't want to start a fight with Willie Reed.
I'll pay the fine.
Yeah,
how about you pay your own fine?
Yeah, exactly. How about you go out there, you start a fight with Willie Reed, you pay your own fine, and you be that leader. I'm so glad you brought this up, Jalen, because that's exactly what I thought. That was my second question on this. Is like, how come he's telling someone else to do this? And that's exactly where you went first. I love doing this show with you, Jalen.
And supporters of Jalen and Jacoby understand a few things that we've pitched to the commissioner, Adam Silver. A couple of these things are going to happen. Now, I don't think LeBron's going to get a chance to wear a do-rag during an NBA game.
Nah, that one might be a little far-fetched.
But 1 through 16 seeding
It's gonna happen.
in the playoffs.
It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen.
And here's the other thing for the great commissioner of the NBA.
Mr. Silver.
When a player or coach or an organization is fined, that money should stay in that local community that supports that team. It should not just go to a big pool of money that gets distributed. The NBA does a terrific job, probably the best of any league internationally, of giving back to communities.
Yep.
I see no problem with giving back to the 30 cities, towns, communities that support the teams all of the fine money at the end of each season.
I completely agree, and something tells me that that is going to happen. When we come back, the NFL is looking to put $100 million back into certain communities, but it's contribute nearly around something like $100 million to causes considered important to the African American communities. In doing so, the NFL hopes that this will effectively end the peaceful yet controversial movement kneeling for the anthem that was started by former 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Jalen, this is going to be reviewed by the coalition on Wednesday evening. We'll learn more about this as it goes on. But something about this doesn't really sit right. Does this feel like the players are trying to buy the end of the protest?
First and foremost, Colin Kaepernick, you created a $100 million conversation between players and owners.
Obviously, I meant the owners are trying to buy the end of the protest.
Big shout to Colin, well-deserved GQ Man of the Year. Created a $100 million conversation. I have some advice for the players. Don't do it.
Ooh.
Please don't do it.
Why is that, Mr. Rose?
I'm not going to get too caught up in the math. But when you say $100 million, that's the splashy headline that's there to purchase the conscience.
Mm-hmm.
The fans, the media, and by the way, to shut y'all up. Y'all been having a loud voice since the beginning of this season, and we trying to muzzle that as much as we can. When you do certain math, it's 32 teams in the NBA. So that's over $3 million per owner. That's not a lot of money overall. And if you're going to do it over 7 years, that's about $400,000 a year. We're not going to look to a dollar figure to be a game changer. And you're going to see a lot of people comment on this topic.
Explain.
And when they finish, you ask them, how much have you given back to the community? You also ask them this, do you have a foundation? Also ask him this. Do you show up at functions when you're not getting paid? And so what ends up happening is, as somebody like me who has dedicated himself to trying to give back to his community, blood, sweat, and tears, time, energy, money, sweat equity, it becomes more than just a dollar figure. That's why when you come to JRLA, I'm not on the donor board for that exact reason. So based on what the players want to get accomplished, you can't put a dollar figure on that. And it's going to be interesting to see if they agree to the deal. But more importantly is, when you say issues related to the players and to the African American community, is that something the league is picking? Is that something the players are picking? Are we dictating where the money goes and when it goes there? If these things aren't happening streamlined, don't take the deal.
It just also feels to me that a bunch of billionaires are doing what billionaires do. They're like, oh, we have a problem. What should we do? Throw money at the problem. You know what we're going to do? We're going to throw money at this problem. It's also a term that we use in production. Is throw money at the problem, it'll go away. And you know what's not going to happen? You can't throw money at institutional racism. You know what I mean? And make it go away. Like, this is certainly a step, and money is part of the process, but money alone is not going to, I've never say solve, but money alone is not going to create the sort of change which the players are asking for through this protest. And it also feels like it would cheapen the movement if this sort of a gesture ended it. Does that seem fair to say?
Absolutely. The gesture happened a couple of ways. When Jerry Jones had his squad take a knee prior to the anthem to agree to stand for the anthem, then he came out later and contradicted the whole scenario. When you have 45 going to Twitter and he's calling the NFL players out of their name, that all now derails from why initially Colin Kaepernick chose that venue to express himself, and so many players followed, to now we're going to accept the dollar figure and we're just going to go be quiet. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not about the money. I got to tell you a word that continues to get lost.
What's that?
Power. Is what it's about.
Money,
and
power,
to
respect.
your point, you can't purchase that.
I don't think we've heard the end of this. As I mentioned, the Players Coalition is getting together on Wednesday night to discuss this. I do not think that they will flatly accept this. I think it's the start of a long conversation / negotiation. But money alone cannot create the change that this community needs. Next, Eli Manning has started 210 games for the Giants consecutively. The streak has gone on for a long time, and it will end this Sunday, as head coach Bob McAdoo has announced that Geno Smith, yes, that Geno Smith, will be the starter for the New York Giants. Jalen, let's listen to Eli, who reacted to this news.
It's hard. It's been a hard day to handle this, but hang in there and figure it out.
Hardest days of Giant, you would say?
It's up there. Yeah.
Do you feel like you might have started your last game for the Giants?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll take it one week at a time.
Emo Eli makes me sad, Jalen. Are the Giants doing Emo Eli dirty?
Here's what I want everyone to understand. First and foremost, Eli Manning has started his last football game as the quarterback of the New York Football Giants.
Oh, really? Really?
He will, in my opinion, end up in Jacksonville with Tom Coughlin, or end up in Denver following his brother's footsteps.
I like this too.
Putting that on wax.
Fun theories.
Number two, what does Eli or the team have to gain by trotting him out there for the rest of the year? Get him hurt?
They don't have much to gain whatsoever. I mean, Eli Manning is a veteran. He doesn't need the experience. And another thing we know about this whole thing, that the thing that no one's really talking about is Bob McAdoo's not going to be the coach next year. That's one reason I think Eli might be around next year. Ben McAdoo is not going to be the coach next year of this team. So whatever moves he makes, it's just going to all get wiped clean the second after Week 17 is over.
And it's not a Lifetime Achievement Award. The entire team has not performed the way it did last year. He, as a quarterback, has continued to decline with his performance overall. So regardless to who they're going to start, they're cleaning house, period, as you just mentioned. And so you don't want him to get injured because you can't trade him. Everybody's missing the point. If he goes out there and he gets hurt or he continues to play bad football, now you hurt his value even more.
I just want to say this in my defense. Bob McAdoo would probably be a better head football coach for the Giants than Ben McAdoo. Coming up next on Jalen and Jacoby, Christmas trees are coming. They are exactly what you think they are. They're Christmas trees that are upside down. You might think that's silly, but they look awesome. The ornaments hang better. They look funky. This one has roots on it. Do you support the upside down Christmas tree movement?
I do not support the movement. I appreciate and want my Christmas tree as traditional as possible. I'm not mad at those that do it. It's a terrific holiday, one of my favorites. I'm happy that they're being creative with their Christmas tree, but it's not something I will be participating in.
I support the upside down Christmas tree. So Victor Oladipo.
Hola, Oladipo.
He was traded to the Pacers, and before that he was traded to the Magic, and it seemed like all this got to him. He said to the Bleacher Report, quote, "Being traded twice, it makes you feel people don't want you. You start second-guessing yourself. Doubt starts to creep in a bit." Jalen, you may or may not have been traded 16 or 17 times in the NBA. How much of this is real?
It's not about a salary. It's all about reality. What he said is actually true. The two teams that traded you, they didn't want you.
Oh, okay.
They didn't.
So how do you not let the doubt creep in as it did for him?
Because the two teams that are going to pay you millions of dollars to play basketball did want you.
I suppose that would take a little bit of the sting out of it.
You do it.
And then you just ball out like Oladipo's doing right now, and everything's all good. Shout out to Lance Stevenson, who's been so hot lately. I'm back on.
Victor,
I'm back on, Lance.
It's great to see him playing up to his potential. You so die easy with Lance and teams and whatever.
He's playing well. I'm back on. Next, we have this. First of all, big shout to The Ringer and JJ Redick. JJ Redick took his podcast over to the Podfathers Ringer Network. Shout to them. And his first guest was Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid said a stupid 69 joke, and then Jalen called him unprofessional, and then Joel Embiid went on the 6 and said an 81 joke, and we thought it was all over. But, of course, JJ Redick, being a good host, trying to be controversial, asked him about it, and Joel responded.
So the thing with Jalen was, I made a comment. I was a random number. I was at 69%. I didn't know what else they were talking about or what else they were thinking. I'm from Africa. I'm new, basically still new in the States, so I don't know what's going on here. And I don't know why people were making fun of that number. I actually had no idea.
Do you believe that Joel Embiid had no idea why people were making fun of that number?
I don't. And I'm not going to go back and forth with a 23-year-old future star in the game because he has a long way to go before he actually becomes a vet, and I'm rooting for that. I'm here to say what I mean and mean what I say. And when you're talking post-game to a woman reporter, in the future, I guarantee you, if they ask him what percentage he is as it relates to his health, he will not use 69%. Because whether it was the team, whether it was a media relations person, somebody in his family, somebody that is in his represents him, would have told him that that's not appropriate. And that's exactly what I said. It's not personal.
And if none of those people did it, guess what? OG Jalen Rose did. Moving on, Jay-Z and Beyonce. Jay-Z's done this new interview with the New York Times, and now he has this theory of this. And me and Jalen have seen through this the whole time. His theory was that they were working on a joint album together when Beyonce broke away without him knowing and made the Lemonade album about Jay-Z's reported infidelity. And then, of course, he came out with 444, where he poured out his soul about the problems in the family. Do you think all of this is just another way of manipulating us and teasing a future joint album between the two of them?
I want to introduce everybody that's not in a serious relationship to a term.
What's that?
It's called pillow talk.
Okay.
And what that means is there are things that those two individuals that lay in the same bed every night know about one another that their parents don't know, that their friends don't know, that their coworkers don't know. And so did their relationship have turbulence? Of course.
Sure.
Every relationship has.
Do you think they were just lying in bed one night on the pillows and saying, I know we've had a tough time, but how about we make $1 bajillion off